Hello, and it's good to have you again on today's show. Nigeria, an import-dependent nation, is yet to be a player in its shipping industry despite her huge contribution to global trade. Playing marginally in the industry, it is on record that no fewer than 90% of shipping companies owned by Nigerians have either completely shut down their operations or is barely struggling to survive. How to drive the development of Nigeria's indigenous shipping activity and foreign dominance call for billions of dollars lost, create jobs and increase her foreign earnings are some of the issues that will be on the front burner on today's show. I'm Norma Obiaswalo. Nigeria, which is ranked the 7th largest oil producer in the world, is the only oil-producing country that does not carry a drop of its crude. Industry statistics shows that Nigeria generates an estimated annual cargo throughput of 150 million metric tons, with freight earnings in excess of $5 billion in her international trade transactions. 95% of this income is earned by foreigners, with job deprivation that comes from it. The same dominance by foreigners is also extended to the domestic shipping market, where an estimated $3 billion annual marine-related spending in the oil and gas production activities are virtually earned by foreigners. What is seen is a situation of so much activity and so much money, but little impact on the lives of Nigerians. No wonder the country's bad economy accounts for the high level of frustration and restiveness in the country. With this in mind, the federal government of Nigeria came up with the cabotage law in the maritime industry and the local content policy in the oil and gas sector to tackle this challenge. Yet implementation of political will has ensured the almost death of Nigeria's shipping sector. Before we get further into today's lineup on the program, let's find out the latest in maritime news.
President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has commissioned the Funtua Inland Dry Port in Katsina State, noting that the facility would assist in the diversification of Nigeria's economy and bring about economic development. The port, strategically located in Funtua, the third to be completed and commissioned among the 6 legacy inland dry port projects spread across Nigeria's 6 geopolitical zones. The Funtua Inland Dry Port holds immense potential to enhance the ease of conducting international business for interior-based shippers, both importers and exporters. President Tinubu, represented by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, George Akume, further explained that the concept of inland dry ports has gained prominence globally, particularly with the container revolution. There is also the advent of door-to-door cargo delivery, which grants importers and exporters located within the inland cities, as well as neighboring hinterland countries such as Niger, Chad, Northern Cameroon and Central Africa access to shipping and port services without the need to physically visit seaports. On its part, the Minister of Marine and Blue Economy, Adegboyega Oyetola, added that the presence of several manufacturing industries in Katsina not only makes it suited, but most qualified to host an inland dry port, as these port reform programs is designed to, among other things, decongest the seaports. The Director General, Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency, NIMASA, Dr. Dayo Mubirala, has held his first interactive session with stakeholders after his appointment as the NIMASA DG by President Bola Tinubu on March 12. Dr. Mubirala said the purpose of the visit was to listen to stakeholders and glean ideas from them. He said his management team would focus on delivering on the key mandates of the agency. Stakeholders who took turns to speak at the event advised the new DG to focus on empowering and developing indigenous capacity. The president of the Nigerian Chamber of Shipping, Aminu Umar, advocated for duty waiver for vessels acquired by Nigerians to enable them compete effectively with foreign counterparts, as he called for the digitization and standardization of the Nigerian Ship Registry. Speaking at the event, ship owner and a former Minister of Interior, Emmanuel Ihanacho, described Mubirala as a professional of international standing who will dedicate himself to the growth of the maritime sector. The interactive session ended with the unveiling of the new collective bargaining agreement for seafarers titled Reviewed Minimum Standards for Nigerian Seafarers for 2023 to 2025.
Welcome back. If you are just joining us, this is Maritime Radar. Research has disclosed that no Nigerian vessel was listed among the 500 vessels that visited the Nigerian ports in the first quarter of 2022, and no Nigerian flagship plied international route. This rather sad reality means no value added to the huge annual tonnage generated by way of earnings in freight, which translates into billions of dollars lost to Nigeria. Even the coastal trade reserved for indigenous operators are seen being dominated by foreign operators, and the common reason for this is the lack of capacity by the indigenous operators in the provision of seaworthy ships. The Nigerian ship owners have consistently cited lack of financial capacity, insecurity, infrastructure, and foreign dominance as the bane of the Nigerian shipping companies. On the flip side, experts, including master mariners, say it's actually a challenge of bad management, not understanding the business, and not setting aside required percentage for maintenance. What exactly is hampering the development of indigenous shipping in Nigeria is what Dr. Dakuku Peterside, former Director General of Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency NIMASA, will help us understand on the show. Stay with us. It's good to have you on the show.
Thank you very much.
So let's start this conversation having a background understanding of the potential of Nigeria's shipping industry.
Well, if you ask me to talk about the potential of Nigerian shipping industry, is enormous. You have to start with the fact that we have a long coastline, over 800 kilometers of coastline. And that's something that you must acknowledge, and something that gives us great advantage. Aside from that, we have a huge market by virtue of having 220 million citizens who are not only citizens, but have the capacity, the financial capacity to make demands. We also have one of the largest inland waters globally, and precisely in Africa. That's an advantage. Then we have high volume of oil and gas activities. That gives us another added advantage rather. Now, so if you look at this holistically, we are a maritime nation. Unfortunately, we have not exploited this advantage at all. And so, starting from that point of view, we are a key maritime nation.
But looking at what you just enumerated here, shows that we have not been able to harness, or we are not a player, because we've not taken advantage of these numerous natural resources that's just bestowed on us as a nation. So how do we go about harnessing these resources? Then what do you think? We have a dedicated ministry now, the Ministry of Marine and Blue Economy. So what do you think the ministry should be doing now to harness all these resources that you've enumerated here?
All right, thank you very much. If you talk about harnessing the resources, it's a combination of factors. It's a multi-pronged approach. So having a dedicated ministry is not enough.
Okay.
Having a dedicated ministry deals with two issues. Okay. One is policy, and the other one legislation. Legislation in conjunction with the National Assembly. That's just one element in terms of harnessing our maritime potential, translating potential to benefit. Now, there are also other issues. One, you need to have the human capacity. Okay. You need to have the financial capacity. Okay. You need to have infrastructure in place. Okay. You need to also translate this to competitive advantage. Okay. Now, you've got to make your processes efficient to compete in a globalized world, shipping is a global business. It's not a local business. And so if you are inefficient, you can't compete in the global marketplace. And all of these things need to be in place for you to begin to optimize the benefit of having the natural endowment of being strategically located where we are. Unfortunately, for now, most of those things are not in place. We don't have the right infrastructure. If you look at the ports, we have 6 port complexes. Our ports are not particularly the most modern or the most competitive or the most technologically driven.
It didn't make 10
in Africa.
In Africa.
If you say top 10 in Africa, they're not there.
They're not there.
Top 100 globally, they're not there. So that's the port. Now, aside from the port, there are other places, anchor of maritime activities. What's going on? You understand? I can tell you this. Unfortunately, even with the minimal level of fishing activities, we do not have dedicated fishing terminals in Nigeria. We used to have.
Okay, that brings me back, bringing back home. You said shipping is global in nature.
It is global.
But it's as if also that our local players, because charity begins at home, seem to be skimmed out. Because 80% of vessels operating in Nigeria are owned and crewed by foreigners. So talk us through how the Cabotage Act has fared, in your view, and in empowering, how it has fared in empowering local players to be part of this global shipping business.
Okay, from my own vantage position, I know that the Cabotage Act has done well. It may not have achieved all we set out to achieve, but have we made appreciable progress? The answer is yes. And I can back it with relevant statistics. Data do not lie. If data is, properly curated, data settles issues. Now, number one is that in the area of manning, before now, we didn't have professionals. We didn't have trained seafarers. We didn't have a lot of them around. Today, even from one strand of the program of Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency, we have 3,000 qualified seafarers. Are they all working in Nigeria? The answer is no. Some are working in ocean-going vessels for international shipping companies. Some are working in our own local vessels, trading within our coastal waters. That's one appreciable progress, that the Cabotage Act has recorded. Now, the other one is the issue of ship ownership, whether it's bare boat charter, whether it's full ownership. We've also made appreciable progress. We are not where we were in 2003 when the Cabotage Act was passed. Today, whether anybody likes it or not, a number of Nigerians own platform supply vessels, they own security support vessels, and all the support vessels that we use in coastal trading. We don't own all the vessels, but we've made a lot of progress, and we must acknowledge the fact that we've made progress. It's only when you acknowledge that, then you can encourage people to do more. So even in the area of ship ownership, we made progress. Now, what of the issue of, Nigerian flags? That's another strand of the Cabotage Act. At the time the Cabotage Act was passed, there were only between 17 and 20 vessels carrying Nigerian flags. Today, over 100, in fact, and in Nigerian ship registry, you have over 200 registered vessels in Nigerian ship registry. That's another progress. So we made progress. And like I've always said, we are not where we ought to be. We've not realized our maximum or optimal potential. It's still work in progress. Could we have done better? Perhaps. Are there challenges? Indeed, there are challenges. And I can point out some of those challenges.
Okay, we are due for a short break. But I'm still interested in funding. And I'm interested in how NIMASA has fared in its core mandate. But that will be after this short break. Please stay with us.
Africa needs its own storytellers, people who understand the continent because they're from it. People who know that news is more than just a conversation starter, it's our stories. Because these stories run deeper than headlines and segments. It's about digging deeper to get the facts and telling the human side of every single story. not just the echoes from foreign headlines and perspectives. It's time to take back our narratives and share them in our voices. The birth of Africa's New Age reporting, and this is where it begins, right here at News Central TV, with stories that put Africa first.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Maritime Radar, and I still have with me Dr. Dakoko Peterside. He is the former Director General of Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency, NIMAS. So funding, aside from CVFF, which have not been disbursed, you said here is lack of political will.
And other process challenges.
Okay. So how else do you think, apart from collaboration, you also mentioned that local ship owners should also look at collaborating just as we see among themselves, just as we see in the aviation industry. So how else can they raise funds aside from this collaboration and CVFF?
All right, there are different models that we can replicate in our country. And I'll just quickly point four. One is the cabotage vessel financing fund. That's one which we already have in place, which we have not utilized. That's one. Now, two, at the country level, government can make policy. All we need is to convince government that this sector is critical in employment generation, in logistics, and in all other facets. Now, government can make a policy. They've done that for agriculture. Recall that there was a central bank intervention in agriculture at one point where you can access funds at one single-digit interest rate. They did that intervention for healthcare. They did that intervention for aviation at different times. In fact, even in the oil and gas industry, there was an intervention at some point. Now, government at the policy level can also intervene in that sector and say we're providing funding through the central bank or through other banks, the commercial banks, backed by the central bank, where we give you at a single-digit interest rate. That intervention is being done. That's a second model. Now, there's a third model where government can partner with private sector people, government owning minority equity in your own business. So you have a potential, they take you through. Now, that's what Nigerian Content Development Board, under their past leadership, did. They identify, high flyers, those with capacity to drive business, then you pitch, and of course they evaluate it and think that this is going to be viable. They invest 30-40%. And at the end of the day, of course, you keep not only dividend, you buy them out over time. Now, that's another model that government can do. Government can look at viable businesses, support you, buy 30% shares, 40% shares, now work through you. Now, one thing is that once government steps in, there's enhanced corporate governance. That's the first thing. You're not going to joke with corporate governance. Of course, management, there'll be management efficiency. You cut down inefficiency, waste, and all of that, because government will implant people in your system, not necessarily as those who set strategy or those who execute strategy. But of course, they will monitor. Their funds are at stake. So that's another model. Now, there's yet another model where government itself now will buy vessels and get management contracts with Nigerians and even Nigerians and foreigners consortium. So there are different models of injecting funds to boost maritime activity and shipping in particular, acquisition of ship and building of ship infrastructure. So government can consider any of the models.
So the other leg of my question is NIMASA.
Yes.
How has it fared in its core mandate of shipping development?
Now, you see, you need to understand NIMASA's core mandate. It's two-pronged. NIMASA's first mandate is regulation. You see, people don't get this right. And we've made with rebranding, all the things we did, we try to get people to understand that their primary mandate is shipping regulation. And then their secondary mandate is shipping development. They're not the same. They're two distinct things altogether. And we need to understand this. And I've made this point over and over again. So to that extent, I can say in the regulation, NIMASA has done very well. At some point, and under my watch, and I don't know what must have happened, I've not looked at the data, NIMASA was #1 in port state control in the whole of Africa, consistent for a long time. NIMASA was #1 in flag state control for a very long time. Those are their two core mandates. Now, in the area of shipping development, NIMASA may not have done so well. And the plank of that shipping development is dependent on the Cabotage Act. And even the element of the Cabotage Act that would have served as a catalyst for shipping development is the disbursement of the CVFF. And we will not be very lucky to succeed in disbursing CVFF, and for very obvious reasons. Number one is the issue of political will.
Yeah.
Number two is the process challenge. Number three is even the readiness of the indigenous players to access the fund itself.
Okay, let's look at another critical player in the shipping industry, which are the seafarers. So, how will you assess the Nigerian Seafarers Development Program, that's NSDP, how it has fared in improving and increasing local qualified manpower to take up employment openings in the cabotage trade?
I will go straight ahead. Under the NSDP scheme, NIMASA has trained, and in some cases, in collaboration with state governments, over 3,000 seafarers. At some point, the issue of sea time was a challenge, but somehow NIMASA has found a way around it.
Okay.
Today, over 2,000 of them have their COCs, including over 50 with first-class COCs, grade 1 COCs. And some of them are hired by world-class shipping lines. Some are hired in the local shipping industry. And they're very competitive, I can tell you. Nigerian seafarers are no dunce at all. They can compete with the best around the world. They may have character flaws. People have character flaws. But again, it's work in progress.
Before I let you go, let me take your final words on this. What are your expectations in 2024? All the remaining months in 2024, what do you want to see in the shipping industry in Nigeria?
First, the first thing I'd like to see is the ministry rolling out a roadmap of where they're headed and how they intend to get there. I've not seen that. I have unlimited access to the minister, and I've engaged him on this. I'd like to see the roadmap of where we are going as a nation. How do we intend to harness the opportunities inherent in the blue economy? I've engaged the Honorable Minister on this, and I believe they're doing something about it, but I'm yet to see, I'm yet to hear the plans. We need to improve infrastructure. We need to make necessary interventions. We need to build capacity.
It's critical.
You understand? Let's see a plan. Now, this plan, we can now interrogate the plan and say, in this plan, what are you doing in the area of manpower? What are you doing in shipbuilding? What are you doing in ship acquisition? I don't know if you're following.
Yeah.
And so, if you look at the greater blue economy beyond shipping, you know, say, what are we doing in aquaculture? What are we doing in seabed mining? What are we doing in tourism? What are we doing in mineral exploitation and all of the subsectors that constitute the blue economy? I like to see that roadmap this year. I like to also see the plans of government to intervene in the industry. I like to see local players come together with great initiative. I can see vibrancy with Ship Owners Association of Nigeria. But I like to also see an overarching plan. We can't continue to act in silos and hope to make progress. No, it has never really worked anywhere. Check all countries that are successful in the maritime industry. You see a coherent national plan with different elements. The place of the private sector, the place of partnership, the place of indigenous players. You see all of them, and you see how these things come together. You see how the puzzles come together to give you a bigger picture. I'm not seeing that. I like to see that. So we can't continue to do interventions that misalign with the overarching objective. What's the overarching objective? What's our clear vision? And I keep telling people that if you set out today, I want to go to Abeokuta. If you set out of your house, you're going nowhere, you will roam about. But if you set out and say, I want to go to Abeokuta, you say there are 2-3 roads that I can lead me to Abeokuta. I'm going to follow this because it's the shortest. And okay, how am I going to go? Perhaps, maybe let's say Ibadan. Maybe I want to go by train, I want to go by a road. This is the advantage of going back. So we want to see the vision. Where do we want to go? How do we get there? How do we mobilize the resources? Human resources, financial resources. How do we put the right infrastructure in place? What are the challenges we're likely to encounter? This is clearly called the vision, the strategy, the resources to take you there. And of course, you anticipate all the challenges and look out for the mitigation measures to get you there. And look at the numbers. This is how to measure progress as we move. And so this shows that we've made progress from here to here. What's the data? That's another thing that is lacking in the industry. Data. We have data that's not reliable, that's not available. We initiated that. We tried to build a maritime bank. But of course, we didn't stay long enough to complete that and deliver on that project. And I believe that I have worthy and competent successors. I believe that they will drive it. The new chief executive, I believe that he's experienced enough to drive this. I expect to see changes. Indeed, we deserve changes.
Well, a fine place to end this expose of conversation. It's not enough to have a dedicated ministry. We must have a roadmap.
Let's
we
have
must have a focus. We must have strategy.
Let's all know. Let's know. And who will play what role in that. What are the resources we need? We'll begin to look for those resources. What are the partnerships we need? What are the collaborations we need? What are the infrastructure that needs to be in place? How do we measure if we're making progress?
A fine place is not the only to have a dedicated ministry, but to have a roadmap, have strategy, have capacity to be able
build the capacity
to be able to drive this.
Drive it.
Then any indigenous practitioner that has listened to this conversation will not say they don't have or they don't know how to raise funds. It's been Dr. Dakoko Peterside. He is the former Director General, Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency. It's been wonderful talking with you. Thank you very much for your time and thoughts and the solutions definitely you provide. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you too.
And that's our show this week. I hope this episode was able to provide solutions on how to increase local participation in Nigeria's shipping industry. If yes, join us every week on Maritime Radar as we explore potential that will ensure the development of the maritime sector in Africa. You can also explore the latest in global and local maritime news plus industry insights right here. I'm Norma Obiaswala. Many thanks for your time and see you again next week.